Dynasty, you're talking Debbie. You know my guys is never shook. It's time to sit down and let the DJs cook. That's right. You know they coming through and getting heavy. It's time to talk some Dynasty and talk some Debbie. My guys is never shook. Time to sit down and let the DJs cook. Ow!
What is up, my DGens? How we doing? Welcome to Dynasty DGens. Welcome to the Dynasty Show. Welcome to Dynasty Everything. I guess not all Dynasty Everything, but just Dynasty tonight is definitely the topic because we're going to have some fun with it. We're going to be talking about players that are going to fade out. You know, like everybody that is in Dynasty that you think still has value. So we're going to go tier to tier. We're going to be talking about players that might fade out because of age, might fade out because of situation, might just fade out because they're just going to fade. And we see guys that fade all the time, players that essentially they come out of nowhere, you know? So the surprise fades are going to be something that I love talking about this guy because it is guesswork. It is, hey, who's going to be that Kenny Golladay? Who's going to be the guy that is Todd Gurley that is still in his prime and then just says, all right, you know, I've seen enough. We're done. We're cooked. It is what it is. You know, we just saw Mike Williams. That is not a surprise fade. That is not somebody that just died suddenly. We all saw Mike Williams coming around and retiring. But before we get into that, I want to introduce MadDog. MadDog, what's up, brother? How you doing?
Yo, what's going on, man? Happy to be here. I want to get into some of these vets and see who's fallen off the cliff this year.
Yeah, man. I mean, the cliff falls happen all the time, you know, like, and it's usually predicted, it's expected. It's fun to talk about guys like Amari Cooper, about Keenan Allen, guys that haven't really signed yet. It's hard for me to admit the fact that Amari Cooper might be cooked, you know, like Amari Cooper might be in the realm of, you know, like, I guess somebody that you never really saw the fade off. It just like 1 year they stop producing and then they're just gone, you know? And it's tough to accept, you know? Like I think that everyone had Amari Cooper still because 2 years ago he was productive. He was a successful wide receiver in the NFL. By no means was he just like, okay, we're seeing production slip every year. It didn't happen like that, you know? Even when he went to Buffalo, we were like, we saw a big game, and then it was kind of like, all right, well, maybe he's being faded out a little bit. He's not going to be producing, but I didn't see this at all. I don't know how you feel about Amari Cooper right off the bat there, but it felt gross to me. And that's what happens sometimes, you know, like it's hard to predict these guys. It's hard to predict the fall off. You know, there's always situations where these guys are productive year in and year out. And then all of a sudden it is what it is. And that's what's infuriating about Dynasty. It's absolutely like Will Fuller. Will Fuller just said, we thought he was coming back for years. We was like, this is the Will Fuller year. We're going to see him come back. Like Miami was just a messy situation. He's going to come back and go back to the Texans and be a productive wide receiver because he had some good years and he didn't retire at an old age or really like during a fall off, you know, like we saw him essentially go out and do some, you know, life enhancing drugs. And we're like, okay, people do that and they come back and they're productive and successful in the NFL. But that wasn't the case with Will Fuller. And I think people still hold off for Will Fuller. People still have him on their dynasty teams at this point.
Yeah, I know Fuller was somebody when I was getting into the fantasy space, like looking at his numbers now, you can go and say that he wasn't a productive wide receiver or anything, but he was a dynamic player that people talked about, and he did just fall off the map. He just never came back.
Yeah, I mean, dude, Will Fuller was like electric at one point in time. Like we're talking about Will Fuller and the Texans when Deshaun Watson was still a successful quarterback in the NFL. I mean, this feels like almost 10 years ago at this point when we're talking about it in real time. It was probably 2019, 2020, 2020. I think Will Fuller's big year was 2020. So we're going all the way back 5 years. So it feels like it's not that long ago, but and that was the beginning of my content creation was when Will Fuller was good. So if that gives you any idea of when I started doing this and ultimately why, what happened, it was 2019 and, there was a lot of booze involved and COVID was starting to pop off. And I said, man, why don't we just do this? Why don't we just get into writing? So I started writing and doing all that good stuff. And then I said, hey, let's make some content. And then I started doing podcasting and now we're here and I'm half a bottle deep and I'm talking about Will Fuller right now. And it is eye-opening to see the full story.
It's been a long road, hey? Been a long road to D-Gens.
Not even a long road. We're a young company by all means. We are babies when it comes down to it. D-Gens is only 2 years old. I've been doing content for almost 5 years. So before that, I was just a guy tapping sleeper drafts and, talking to my friends while at the bar at that point. But now I'm at the bar only recording it almost. So, all right, let's get into this, man. Let's talk about guys that are slipping a little bit. Let's talk about quarterbacks initially. Let's talk about some guys that I think are expected to slip, but they're going to run out of time. And that's what this pod's all about. We're talking about guys that are going to be running out of time, that the dynasty value is very limited and it's tough. And certain guys you don't have to spend a lot of time on, like there's the Staffords, there's the who else would you put in this category?
The Russ, the Rodgers,
Aaron Rodgers, Russ. I mean, Stafford holds a little bit of weight. Stafford could have a 2-year window. I think that we're talking about Aaron Rodgers and Russ Wilson in a 1-year window. I think we're talking about Russ Wilson in like a half-year window, to be honest with you. I don't think that they're going to hold off, especially with Dabble, like taking Dart that early in the draft. I think that Russ is on a very short lease. Leash.
He is, right? He's on a short
leash. Yeah, I mean,
sure.
he has a short lease and a short leash. So I think that we're talking about a guy that probably is on the verge of retirement. I don't think that Russ has a home after this year. It's kind of sad when you're talking about Seattle fans, when you're talking about guys that have watched Russ's entire career. He's not that old. Like he's not like an old quarterback by any means, but I think he's really at the end of it. Like what is Russ, like 32?
36. So he is. Yeah. So
actually,
he is up there.
He is up there.
And
he's definitely, this is a last year kind of situation that he's in.
It is, and it's unfortunate because Russ, to be a productive quarterback, is mobile, and he's clearly lost that step. We saw it with the Broncos. That was a complete disaster, to say the least. But we even saw that a little bit at the end of his tenure with Seattle. So I agree with you. I think he's going to have a really short leash with the Giants. And if he doesn't come out and, hyper target neighbors or get Theo Johnson involved, it might just be, Jameis until they feel that Dart's ready. And you're right. Like Wilson might just be done by the end of the year.
Man, how fun would that be if we saw Jameis like for 3 or 4 games? Like if we saw like a bridge quarterback there, if Russ just totally fades out a little bit and we see Jameis slide in there. Yeah, Russ, I don't think you can sell Russ. I think Stafford is a big time sell though. I think you could probably get Stafford for, like you could buy Stafford at this realm for a late second. But I would also be comfortable selling Stafford for like a mid-second. You know, like he's in this weird category where like he's a buy and a sell. You know, like I think Stafford's going to have a monster year. I think Stafford, if healthy, is going to have a great year. But man, you know, like it's not going to look good in 2 years' time. And that's just the reality of it. You know, Stafford, give me Stafford's age right now. I don't have it up right now, but I'm
37.
talking about, yeah, Stafford is going to be a game manager to a degree this year. And also, like, he is the epitome of a win now quarterback. And
Yep.
I love, if you have Stafford on a win now team, good for you. That's fine. You know, but if you have Stafford on a team that is probably not going to sniff a championship, you got to sell him. And you can sell him for a mid second, early second, whatever you can get.
And at that point, I agree with you. Like you said, it's whatever you can get, because I would value the roster spot more. If I'm not a team that's going to compete for a buy or potentially get the Puka stack or Adams stack, I'm trading him. I don't care if it's for a third, you know, if it's 2/4, like at that point, I would rather just not have to drop him and get an asset that I might be able to add to something moving forward.
Yeah. And then you have to talk about, we're talking about the guys that are aging out a little bit, but then we can talk about the guys that aren't aging out a little bit, but still might slide off a little bit. And when we're talking about the value and the overall outlook in Dynasty, it's tough to predict these guys, but ultimately, you know, you got to look at the team breakdown. You got to look at the offensive line, the way that the team is set up in general. Do you have any guys that you feel like you want to move off of before the time kind of catches up a little bit? They're not quite at that age cliff, but they also might not produce and might be guys that slide a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I have two guys. So I'll start with Trevor Lawrence. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is ever going to live to, you know, that highly touted generational prospect that we thought he was going to be. We saw him have targets in Ingram. We had Kirk. We had Ridley. It didn't work out. Brian Thomas Jr. put up good stats, but he put up better stats with Mac Jones. You know, I think this is to the point, like, yes, Trevor Lawrence got paid, but you're not going to have too much time left in that window to move on from Trevor Lawrence, especially with a new GM, a new coach. That isn't their guy. Just because the money's there, that doesn't mean that there's any loyalty there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that Trevor Lawrence has a very short leash this year. I think that we're talking about somebody that has to produce at a high level immediately, because when you take a guy in the first round, you trade up for him, you are looking at value. Personally, when you're talking about putting your job on the line, that's exactly what the front office in Jacksonville did. They're taking this guy in the sense that they are looking at him as an offensive weapon. They're looking at him as somebody that's going to elevate Trevor Lawrence. They want Trevor Lawrence to take a step forward, and they need to see it this year. And that's really the reality of the situation. You have to see Trevor Lawrence take a step forward this year. Otherwise, the whole offense, everything's going to shift, and everyone's going to make moves, and everyone's going to change it up. I think that the front office, if Hunter doesn't step in and be a pivotal role, like if he's not like a very productive piece in the offense, I think that the front office is in trouble. I think that everyone that was involved in the trade, everyone that was involved in the whole process probably has a target on their back, you know, and it's not really their fault, but I think that this move has to be done because they see this offense humming with the addition of Hunter. With the addition of Hunter, this offense has to make a giant step forward. And if it doesn't, then I think the entire front office, I think that Trevor Lawrence, I think that everybody involved has a target on their back and probably has very insecure job situation. Like their job security is in jeopardy for sure. It already is in like this red zone that I like to talk about, where it's like, okay, like Steichen in Indianapolis, like that whole front office, they're in the red zone, and they've been in the red zone for the last year. I'm surprised they all still have a job, but I think that we're talking about this team going into that. And man, you can talk about a new coach, you can talk about anything you want, but I've seen new coaches come in and out. And I think that this situation, you have to see dramatic improvement or everyone's going to clean house. And Trevor Lawrence is at that time where he could be a Mac Jones, where he could be a very cheap sell and possibly turn into a backup in the NFL if he doesn't show that he can be a productive guy this year.
Yeah, because we already see him in the 4th round of startup picks and or startup draft, sorry, and we could easily see him if he doesn't come out and make Brian Thomas produce like we all wanted him to in the price that we've been paying in startup drafts. He's easily going to fall back to the 5th or 6th round. As for the front office and the coaching staff, I think that they're going to get a little bit more leeway. They took a swing. I think there's some insulation there that if Hunter doesn't necessarily change the dynamic of that offense, they can run him as a DB and they might be safe there. But I agree. I think if you take a big swing on this and you end up hitting the ground out, it could be a couple of years and we see some more turnover there with the Jags.
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough, man. It's tough because if you're making these big moves and you're talking about somebody that you've been waiting on for a couple of years, eventually they're going to come up the top and they're going to talk about how, ticket sales are down, how the money's not moving, and these guys aren't selling. It really comes down to, is this team productive? Is this team successful? But also, is this team selling tickets? People want to come see this team. And we see 1st-round quarterbacks fall out of favor all the time with the fan base. Trevor Lawrence is very close to falling completely out. And it's tough. And Jamie's in the chat and he's talking about Michael McCorkle-Jones. Dude, you could probably trade places with these guys. And I think that, Mac Jones, if he was taken 10 picks higher, probably would have another couple of years in the NFL. If we're talking about Mac Jones and Trevor Lawrence, when it comes to their stats and their production, very close. They're very close, and it's sad, but they're very, very close. I don't have a side by side right now, but yards, attempts, touchdowns, interceptions are almost simpatico at that point. You got anybody else that you think you're going to sell at the quarterback position? Because I think that there's some spicy picks out there that you could probably sell at this point. I think I'm probably going to hear me out.
Let's hear it. Let it rip.
We are going to get a spice sprinkle right now. I'm going to sell Jalen Hurts right now,
Yeah.
And I'm going to move Jalen Hurts for somebody like a Bo Nix plus or a Drake May plus.
Okay.
Right now. And that is not a knock on Hurts. I think that Hurts is playing out of his mind. I think that Hurts plays out of his realm of production personally. But I also think that Hurts' situation is a little volatile, and I think that the environment that Hurts is in is so fragile that he is in this perfect situation. The situation is slowly changing a little bit. We're seeing AJB getting a little unhappy, wanting to move a little bit. I think that AJB might not be on that team in the next couple of years. So I think that it's already changing the entire environment of Philadelphia. I think if AJB ever moves off of that team, everybody shifts. Everybody has a change in value, and also we're talking about a team that is working on such a small margin when it comes to production, because there's a running aspect, there is a passing aspect, but they don't always align. So it's like you get production, but it's never like consistent when it comes to the overall gameplay. And that,
Right.
to me, when we're looking at Jalen Hurts, we see him as a very productive fantasy quarterback, but also a frustrating actual NFL quarterback sometimes. And that alarms me, because when you have a NFL quarterback that isn't being super productive, but also is producing fantasy points, that's when you see a downturn in fantasy points, because the NFL is trying to shift away from unproductive quarterbacks. And if like you can have these guys that find success, and obviously Jalen Hurts has been successful, don't get me wrong, but they're working on a small margin. They're working on a tush push. They're working on this like factor that is very, very volatile. So I think that Hurts as a whole is working on a small margin of production where you can go and get somebody that is going to improve on production and still probably be in a better position or an equal position that is not reliant on a tush push or a very productive front line. I made that so confusing and went all the way around, but ultimately I think that I believe in the Bo Nix or the Dre Make, and they can rise up into that value, where I see Hurts trying to fall back a little bit, but ultimately, like, I think the tush push was already voted on this year. I think there's a lot of situations that could change in the next couple of years where we see these guys rise up, and I see Hurts kind of fall back a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think they really leaned on Barkley quite heavily this year. They have one of the best O-lines in the league still. Jalen Hurts' pass attempts were down at 361, as his previous lowest was a 460. The completion ratio has never been that good. AJ Brown, when he gets the ball, is ultra efficient with it. But that's the thing, is they have to start to air the ball out a little bit more. And that's where I think Jalen Hurts is going to be susceptible. So I totally understand why you would want to sell him, insulate with the younger player that can go and gain more value and give you some flexibility.
Yeah, it's not about trading players out because you think they're not going to be productive in the NFL, and that's not really like how I play the game at all. I trade very productive players that are going to produce, players that are going to be successful in the NFL, and I trade them for guys that I think are going to match that production, but also get that insulated piece, whether it be a pick, whether it be somebody that can help me in the lineup, whether it's a whatever, something has to be added on. You get that added value, but you're also getting a player that you think can match. And I think that Drake May is somebody I talked about earlier in my 1 o'clock pod that could probably be close to Jalen Hurts when it's all said and done when it comes to production this year. And I think that we're talking about trading for ascending values, and you're trading off players that are going to descend. And I think that Hurts could be leapfrogged by a couple of guys that are in the second round right now. And that's just the reality of how Superflex works, Do you have anybody at the quarterback position that you want to touch on a little bit? Because we can move on to wide receiver right now, and we could talk about some guys that are going to be aged out, and then talk about guys that are surprise picks and people that you might want to move off before it's too late.
I want to touch on one more quarterback really quick, and I think that's Justin Fields. I think on the deal that he got from the Jets, we need to see that passing efficiency where he needs to hyper target Garrett Wilson. We haven't necessarily seen it in the past where it's enough for a coaching staff to vouch and have the confidence in him to sign him to a long-term deal. Yes, the Bears was a complete disaster. I don't agree with what the Steelers did to him. I think that he could have kept playing over Russ, but I think ultimately there are just too many flaws in Justin Fields' game that I'm willing to move off of him. I think he's going to put up points for you, and people are going to see that in season, and they're going to go and draft this production, not realizing that in the future he might not have that same position.
Yeah, I like that call out with Justin Fields. I think that he is a good time sell when it comes down to it. I think that Justin Fields is in a position where he can probably keep his spot, because I think I talked a little bit in detail. I don't know how loyal you guys are, if you watch the 1:00 pod or if you're in here right now and you haven't, but go check that out, because I talked about Garrett Wilson being somebody that I'm in on completely this year. And that's for the reasons that I think Justin Fields is going to hyper target him. I think that Justin Fields is going to look out for him, and he's going to look for him whenever he can. And I think that they have that rapport, they have that ability, where we're talking about two guys that played in the college level and have that camaraderie when it comes down to it. Like you're friends with each other. You're going to look for each other, like if you and I were playing football or we were doing anything together and we were in a field of guys that I don't really know that well, I think I'm going to look to you initially regardless, and I think that's really what you're going to see with Justin Fields and Garrett Wilson. You're going to see two guys that are comfortable with each other, that are friends with each other, that would go have a beer with each other after the game. They know what each other look like. And it's like, that goes way longer and way farther than you would think, to be honest, especially on a football field. But when we are talking about the value of Justin Fields, when we're talking about the overall outlook, I think that Justin Fields is a sell, because, man, if he hits this year, what's he going to look at? A 2-year contract? Does he have job security even if he hits this year? Justin Fields has to show that he belongs for 2 years in a row. Like, Justin Fields has to hit this year, and then he's going to get a 2-year contract, and then he's got to show out in that 2-year contract. And then if he doesn't hit in that 2-year contract, he's a free agent at 27, and that still is in an area where he's going to be productive and he could actually net another contract. But ultimately, you don't want to target guys that are on 1-year contracts, 2-year contracts. It's ugly. There's no job security. There's no reason why they can't bench this guy on a 1-year contract. There's no stagnant money. There's no, there's nothing holding them to this guy when it comes to playing time. So as much as I want, and I think that Garrett Wilson's going to be hyper targeted this year and they're going to be productive offensively, I also agree that Justin Fields, if somebody believes that he is worth a first or plus, is a massive sell. I agree with that all day. Yeah.
Love it, man.
Let's move to wide receiver. Let's talk about guys that we think are just going to slide down. And it's not, and I want to reiterate this when we keep moving from position to position, these guys aren't going to die. These guys aren't going to be like, okay, we're going to just like fall off the face of the earth and be non-existent. When you're a sell, you're already at your peak value. When you're a sell, you're already at this spot in Dynasty where you're never going to rise. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to be productive. That doesn't mean that you're not going to be a very successful wideout and produce in fantasy. That just means that you're never going to get more for your value right now in the future. You're never going to produce in value what you are going to get right now. And it is what it is. And we talked about guys in the past that will still produce in fantasy, but that doesn't mean you can't sell them. That doesn't mean you can't move off of these guys that will be successful in the NFL for 1 to 2, 3 years, but you're never going to match it. And that's how it goes. Let's talk about, the obvious guys, like the guys that we're talking about that the age is going to slip out. And we talked about, the quarterback and Matthew Stafford. Devontae Adams is definitely an obvious talk, and that doesn't mean that Devontae Adams isn't going to be a successful wideout for the next 2 years, but I sold Devontae Adams for first in 2025, straight up. And that felt like
Mhm.
I had to, right? Well,
Yeah,
I actually texted you. I texted you. I said, hey, are you going to trade Devontae Adams for a first? And you said, yeah, you gotta. And I said,
yeah.
do I want to? Am I wronged for not wanting to? And you're like, you just got to do it. And I said, yeah,
It is.
I gotta do it.
He's gonna put up points and he's gonna be in your lineup. But if you have that depth or you now get that flexibility, you have to have the discipline to be able to do it. So I'm glad you pulled the trigger on it because I didn't hear if you did it or not.
I did. I got it. I got it like I don't remember the final trade, but it was like Pat Bryant and a first for Devontae Adams.
Okay.
And yeah,
Yeah.
I needed a little sweetener in there. But I think Devontae Adams is gonna have one of his best fantasy seasons this year.
I
Because
agree.
we're gonna see Devontae Adams is by no means cooked. He's by no means somebody that is going to be super successful this year because he has everything you want. He has all of the skills that you look for. And man, if I built like the perfect wide receiver, I think Devontae Adams would be the guy. And it's not even about Devontae Adams as a complete route runner. The footwork, I think it's just a combination of both. Like if you ask me the best route runner in the NFL, it wouldn't be Devontae Adams. If you ask me the best guy that had the complete footwork and every motion off the line, it wouldn't be Devontae Adams. But if you ask me the guy that has both, it would be Devontae Adams. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like he is the guy that can run routes, is complete and crisp with his footwork, his release, the way that he, his packages that he has off of the line. I mean, Devontae Adams has all of that, and it is so fluid. It is beautiful. It's that breakfast joint that you've been going to for 30 years. Devontae Adams is so comfortable. He is somebody that is comfort, is where you're going to go for breakfast, and your wife or whoever you date or whatever, your mom, I don't care who you talk to and go out to breakfast with, they're going to say this spot. And it's always going to be the same spot. We're going to go there every fucking time. I think that Devontae Adams is that favorite breakfast spot. And it's so fine, like you're not like, oh, I need it. Like it's just like it's so comfortable. And that's what he is, but you gotta sell the fuck out of Devontae Adams if you're not a competing team. You gotta sell this guy for whatever you can get upside of a first. I think it's so rare to get Devontae Adams at his age for a first, straight up.
And this isn't with Devontae Adams, going back to the type of player that he is, like the intangibles that he has and the smarts that he has for the game. He understands how the defense lines up against them, and he already knows how he's going to burn them before the ball's even snapped. Not to mention, Puka Nacua is always banged up. Matt Stafford goes and hyper targets his receivers. So the games that Puka misses, like we're going to see Devontae Adams probably finish as a top 3 wide receiver for that week, right? That's my thoughts on that.
I think that you can hold Devontae Adams until week 4 or 5. And I think that there's going to be a massive sell window for Devontae Adams. And man, if you have Devontae Adams in a compete team, like what do you hold them until the wheels fall off, and that's fine. I don't ever disagree with that. I don't ever disagree with points. I think that you got to get points. You got to like get what you can get. But man, Devontae Adams at this point, if you can snag a very young wide receiver. Like there was a situation in the past season where I traded Devontae Adams for Emeka Ibuka, and it was like very random, but Devontae Adams was cooking for the Jets at this point in time, and it was before Aaron Rodgers kind of, I mean, he had this like really good moment, you know, like where the sell window was always money, and you have to wait for that sell window. And when I tell my listeners what I'm talking about, you know, but you have to dictate that sell window, and you have to understand that this moment, right, where this moment happens, it is like a 9/11, you know, and I hate to make that reference, but it is that unexpected moment where you're like, oh shit, okay, Devontae Adams did it. And it's not even like right when it happens, but it's the expectation, you know, and we're talking about Always Sunny in Philadelphia. When you're talking about the expectation, when you're talking about, it is really the expectation. It is the understanding and expectation that this guy is going to do this for the rest of the year. And somebody somewhere is going to believe that this is what they're going to do. This is their production. This is what they're going to eat this up. They're going to be this guy moving forward. And people believe that shit. People just like, they see Aaron Rodgers throw, you know what I mean? He's throwing 250 yards on a half Achilles, and they're like, man, we're talking about Devontae Adams MVP season, baby.
He's not rolling back the clock, right? Father Time is undefeated. He's going to smash. If you're not a buy team, you find that window, you go and knock on doors, and you try to convince a team that might be on the bubble that has a volatile first round pick, and you go and you say, hey, Devontae Adams is going to do this for you. I'm picking my direction. And that's what you go and do.
Yeah.
You got to put in the legwork on a lot of these vets.
Yeah, and not even vets. Like, is there somebody that you would look at the wide receiver position? And if you don't, that's cool. I got a bag right now. But if you have somebody that you want to sell, and if you're looking at ADP charts, if you're looking at guys that are in this range or somewhere in that realm of possibility, who would you want to move off of that you think might slide? And it doesn't have to be of age. Like Devontae Adams might not even slide because he's still a value, but also, man, Father Time will snatch up your value no matter what. And you have to sell these guys before they grab you, because nobody saw Cooper Kupp falling off this past year. Nobody's like, sell Cooper Kupp because Cooper Kupp's gonna just die. And he didn't just die, but Cooper Kupp is cooked at this point. You know, when it comes to dynasty value, Cooper Kupp is way back, like behind Jacoby Myers in dynasty value.
Absolutely, he is.
And that's not something people predicted. So
I know this is one guy that we disagree on, and I you know what, it's something that I got to get more agnostic about, but it's Jameson Williams for me.
Oh,
I just,
let me pause you. Did you see the video of the guy that was like ducking when he was at the Coldplay concert, and that was in Boston, where he was like with his mistress from he was with his mistress. Yeah. Hold on, I'm gonna duck and pour some more wine in my cup. Hold on.
Okay. So Jameson Williams is who I'm moving. I think more of what we see from him was just gimmick plays with the Detroit Lions. I really think that John Morton, the new OC there, is going to be trying to use Jahmyr Gibbs as the focal point. So we have Amon-Ra St. Brown, we have Laporta. I just don't see how Jameson Williams, unless his efficiency is through the roof, has a big enough piece of the pie to be going around wide receivers like Jalen Waddle, George Pickens, Luther Bird and Jerry Jeudy. Like, I would rather have all of those guys than Jameson Williams. And it could totally, be clipped halfway through the year, and I don't know shit about it, but I just don't think that Jameson Williams is a justified player to be steaming up.
Do I get to talk? I feel bad.
Let her rip.
I think that Jameson Williams is definitely in a position to produce exponentially when it comes to the outlook when we're all said and done. I think Jameson Williams is a buy at this point.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily taking away from your thought process, but where I see it is he's coming off of a major injury last couple years, and he is coming back as a person that is somewhat healthy. When we look at this injury, you have to look at not the past year, but the year after. And I think that he is almost 3 years removed from this injury. But at the same time, I think that he's in a position where he's going to be a focal point. I think that we already saw that glimpse. We saw the production when it comes down to it, when he's, in this position where he is going to be the 2 in this offense. I think that he probably stays as the second option in this offense. I think that he opens up the offense a little bit. I think that, you can point the finger at the fact that the OC is different, that, the offensive line is a little different, but ultimately, I think that he is in a prime position to improve on his stature, the production, and overall commitment to the team. I think that Goff has some more familiarity with him. I think that there is just more to his game that can be put on paper that I think we're going to see. I think that we looked at JMO as a game opener, as a big play guy, and I think that he's got more to that, especially in his bag alone.
I love it. I can't wait to rehash this one in the season, and I think he really seems like one of those players that is polarizing, right? It's either you love him or you hate him, and I think you and I are on opposing sides of that.
Yeah, I think that you can look at him last year, and I think that I would agreed more on it the year before, but I think last year we saw his commitment to the offense, and I think that I can't ignore the fact that he was somebody that was a mainstay and super productive, and not only super productive, but schemed at the offense like to a very extensive degree, And I think that's like really where I stand when I see the involvement and the way that he was used to really stand on business when it comes to JMO being a more productive guy in the NFL and in fantasy. But we can disagree and have fun with it, and then we'll talk a little bit more, and we'll clip this baby, and we'll talk in more depth in another pod. I think it's always fun to disagree and have some fun with it, man.
Hey,
that's what this is about, dude. I think that we can always talk about guys and not agree at all. And we can disagree in the most healthy way possible. I will never, ever disagree with you in a very unhealthy way and call you a lint licker or whatever it is that Canadians call each other. I don't know how to call you a bad name in Canadian, but I'm not going to do it.
We'll just end up calling you, we'll just call you, I'm not your friend guy.
But I'm not your buddy friend.
There you go. That's crossing the line.
I'm not your friend, pal. Dude, call me pal is disaster most of the time, or buddy for that matter. I just feel like you're demeaning me. All right, what do we got? More wide receivers? We got anybody else that we want to talk about?
Yeah, I want to hear one more wide receiver from you.
Yeah, baby. Who am I going to sell at wide receiver? I think that let me go down the gambit real quick and let me talk about wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver. I think that Terry McLaurin is a sell. I also think that we're talking about
I think Terry is a sell, but he doesn't just completely fall into fantasy irrelevance.
no, I don't think that he does at all. But I think that you have to sell these guys on the verge of a contract season, a contract
Yes.
year, the situations that play out. I think that you got to sell Josh Downs.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm looking at my list right now. I think Josh Downs is the juiciest sell because Josh Downs can get you. Like I sold Josh Downs for Xavier Worthy 2 weeks ago. I will sell Josh Downs for anybody in that realm of possibility, but like you are betting on somebody that is in a volatile offense. You're betting on
Yep.
somebody that is in a situation where it is very unknown. You are definitely saying this guy is going to be the quarterback and we're going to get a full year of this guy, but like you have no idea what Anthony Richardson is going to do, what Daniel Jones is going to do, how this is going to play out, how this is going to break down. We're talking about a coaching staff and a front office staff that played Joe Flacco and Anthony Richardson back to back. They played one game for this guy, one game to that guy, one game to that guy. They went back and forth. They said, "Oh, baby, we're gonna get Flacco this week, and we're gonna Anthony Richardson next week, and then we're gonna go back to Flacco this week after." You know, like there is no confidence in this front office. There's no confidence in this coaching staff. The way that they have set it up, I don't have a full belief that we're talking about Josh Downs being a set it and forget it. I mean, he's looking at as a wide receiver 2 right now. And his value right now is in that range of Worthy, is in Addison range, is in these guys that I think will significantly outproduce him. And I think that are in a position where, like, I mean, we heard about Addison's kind of breakdown with his court stuff, and everyone seemed to agree on a plea deal in the same day, which is fucking insane to me. Like, why did Addison and Rashid Rice agree on a plea deal at the same time in the same day?
Because they just raced to the courthouse together. That was it.
I don't even understand. Like, these guys had the same case, kind of, and they're like, we're going to just agree on a plea deal at the same time, the same day. Fucking weird, right? But I think that you're looking at somebody that is in the realm of guys. Like, I would trade Addison for Calvin Ridley straight up. You know, like I would trade him for certain guys that can be extremely productive for me right now. I think you're hoping that Downs is your guy, that Downs is super productive, but that situation has to play out so perfectly, right?
Yep. And we see in the fantasy community, like Josh Downs is getting steamed up right now. Yes, I love his route running. I love his strong hands. I love the player. Coming out of college, he was great. I had tons of shares of Josh Downs. But if people are going to go and offer me something that we're looking at as keep trade cut for a reference, if I can go and get Luther Burden, Chris Olave, if I can get up to a 26 first or a 27 first, even Jalen Waddle and get a plus on that, like I am tearing up. Josh Downs is unfortunately in QB purgatory. We don't know what Daniel Jones is going to do. We don't know who his favorite target is going to be. Or are they just going to play mix and match of Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson and JT gets over 300 touches this year? We don't know what's going to happen. So I will try to find a more constant variable of a player that I can grab.
Yeah, and you can play around with that. You can mix and match. That's what's fun about dynasty trades. That's what's fun about this bullshit that we talk about. You can go and you can keep downs. I don't care what you do. You can keep downs and you can also move it off for guys like that we're talking about right now. And we can talk about guys that I think that ultimately will give you more fantasy points or give you equal fantasy points, but will have more security. Because when it's all said and done, we're looking at a quarterback situation that could be completely different even next year. They're going to draft somebody if Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson don't work out. And they're going to have a completely different offense. They're going to have a completely different front offense. I think that everything is going to be flipped upside down if this year isn't successful. I don't see how this year is super successful. I don't know. I think that we're going to look at a new coach and a new GM at this point, and we're going to just have a completely flipped situation. And Downs is going to be in the same purgatory. Like, man, I don't know who my quarterback is. I don't know who my coach is. I don't know anything, And it's I don't trust this situation. Even with all said and done, I love Downs. I was high on Downs coming out. I was super high on Downs where he got drafted, but I can't say that the value makes sense, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, cart's kind of getting in front of the horse right now.
Yeah. Let's talk about running backs. Let's talk about guys that people don't want to hear about. They don't want to hear that these guys are going to be big time sells in Dynasty. I think the first guy that I'm going to talk about is Saquon Barkley. And I know that that's a hot topic. I know that's hard for people to hear. I think that a lot of people that have Saquon and they had him last year, they were like, why the fuck would I sell this guy? Why would I move this guy off my roster? Why would I say this guy is somebody that is a sell in Dynasty when he won me billions of dollars? If you play in a big league, you won billions of dollars last year.
It's possible.
I don't know what kind of, you won a big league. You've made a bunch of money. You won billions of dollars. Congratulations. You're probably not listening to my pod. If you won $1 billion last year, you're not listening to anything. You're probably fucking whatever.
You just have you're
sitting at home. You are definitely not listening to YouTube. You're getting dome from your OnlyFans wife or whatever the fuck you do. Like, I don't care.
If you're making that, you're listening to yourself on records over your PA system while you sit on the couch.
Yeah. You're just saying, let's go, over and over again. It's just like a recording of yourself, like saying, let's go, baby.
Yeah.
Let's go, baby. If you won $1 billion, I would still listen to you guys. Let's fucking go, Jamie. I'm going to make a recording saying, let's go, baby. Let's go. Let's go. And then we're going to listen to that when we make $1 billion. Yeah. So, yeah, Saquon Barkley for me is a sell because you have to look at the trajectory of with running back ones in fantasy football. And it is not good. And it's not good in the sense that we're talking about guys that produce at a good level, but they don't produce at a running back one level week in, week out, year in, year out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a confident scale grade when it comes to Saquon Barkley, but I don't think he's going to be the guy that you look at as the running back one in Dynasty, in fantasy next year. I don't think that he's going to produce, and the calculations and everything that I can do on paper don't mean shit. It's more about the fact that there is a very rare occurrence of guys that repeat RB1 seasons year in and year out. There is a very small margin that you're going to produce at the same level the next year that you did last year, especially when it comes to running back. Especially at his age, especially in this position, especially the way that their whole dynamic is lined up. I think that Saquon Barkley is somebody that you want to sell wherever you can. And it's not sell for cheap. It's not sell for like nothing. But if you can get somebody like a Jonathan Taylor plus, if you can get somebody like a Bucky Irving plus, if you can get a A-Chain plus, if you can, like we talked about this in our last pod, A-Chain for Barkley, if you can just trade Barkley for A-Chain, I might do it. I might do it. When it's all said and done, we're talking about getting a couple years back, and it's not common. You have to be Adrian Peterson and Jamal Charles. And that is like really the only two guys that produce at RB1 levels 2 years in a row in the last 10 years.
And, 345 attempts last year. They have a new OC. We've heard that they're going to pass more. I'm assuming that AJ Brown, he's shown us that he's got a little bit of a streak of being a diva in him. There's some words going on to Sirianni and to that team that they need to throw the ball a bit more. And I think it kind of goes to what we saw with the Chiefs. Not that the Chiefs necessarily took the foot off the gas and didn't throw to Kelsey as much, but I think we are going to see a little bit more preservation on the workload that Barkley gets. We might see more Will Shipley this year. We might see Jalen Hurts have more designed runs. We might see Devontae Smith and AJ Brown get a bit more. I agree with you. I think Saquon is kind of a low-hanging fruit for just some natural regression.
Yeah, it's natural regression. We're talking about guys that might not produce at the same level for last year. And it doesn't mean that they're not going to produce in general in fantasy. It doesn't mean that they're not going to produce at a certain level. It just means that we're talking about guys that might not hit the thresholds. And I don't think that Barkley is going to fall off the face of the earth. I don't think that Barkley is going to not exist when it comes to fantasy. I just think that Barkley is not going to eat the perfect storm that is necessary to be the overall RB1. I think that there has to be everything that falls perfectly into place. And when we're talking about dynasty and the overall production of the RB1, there has to be everything that like really is a perfect storm. And it doesn't fucking happen 2 years in a row. It really doesn't. We are looking at Barkley probably producing at the RB2, RB5, RB6 range. And then we're talking about you trading somebody for the RB7, RB4, RB5. We're talking about you getting somebody that's going to produce in the same range with a significant plus or plus on top or whatever it is. You could trade Barkley for Jonathan Taylor and a second, and you could move a lesser wide receiver for a better wide receiver. Like, it's like you can play around with it however you want to do it, but you can move these guys right now for players that might produce at the same level. It doesn't happen like that. And I can show you history. You can look up history. You can look up the guys that have produced at RB1 levels, I wish that I was savvy enough to pull up graphics while I was doing a pod. I just I don't have that kind of time right now.
One other guy that I think we can talk about for a running back that's a massive sell is James Cook. He's been a running back talked about post offseason. Now he's having that contract dispute. I think he's somebody that we all know is in for some touchdown regression. I don't have the exact stat in front of me, but it was something like 40% of his fantasy points came from touchdowns. That seems a little bit absurd to me. I think when you look at the running back position and how many attempts or how many carries players get and the yardage that they put up, it's a completely different ratio than what James Cook scored at.
Yeah, I'm with you on James Cook. I think that's an agreement that I've had across the board. It was somebody that I was supposed to talk about when we were going to do our pod earlier, what's funny is the 1 o'clock pod. I'll break this down a little bit. So 1 o'clock pod was funny where, you know, I had a good friend that was going to hop on with us. We're going to talk about certain topics and stuff like that. And James Cook was on the docket. James Cook was somebody I was going to talk about. I was going to have fun with a little bit. I was going to break down in detail. And ultimately, you know, she got caught up. She had a little thing, personal stuff going on. And I jumped on and I talked about Rashee Rice for an extended period of time. And I couldn't get to everybody that I was going to talk about. So it's fun that we did this. I jumped out of the gym and I said, oh, Rashee Rice news dropped. So I got into the lab and I jumped on and I said, fuck it. Let's go live. And it was fun, but I don't ever suggest doing a full live 40-minute pod by yourself, because you are going and talking, and I can talk for hours on end and I can have fun with it. I can be productive and I can give you guys as much information as you can handle. But can you listen to somebody talking for 40 minutes? I doubt it. I can't listen to somebody talk for 40 minutes, dude. No way. No way in hell can I talk to the same person for 40 minutes. I'm divorced, dude, essentially. Like, I am in a position where we are straight up separated almost at this point, and I've been listening to this person talk for 9 years. So, nice drop right there. But let's kick it off. James Cook, I don't love him as a producer in general. I think that his motion off the line, I think that he works off of Josh Allen's motion. I think that if James Cook worked in any other offense, I think that James Cook would struggle for other reasons besides the fact that he works off of Josh Allen's motion. But like, ultimately, when we're talking about this offense as a whole, I think James Cook production is reliant on the fact that Josh Allen is so motion dependent, that is so movement everywhere, that he works off of the line and takes 2 to 3 steps and is very manipulative when it comes to the ball motion and everything. Like, I think that his manipulation helps James Cook a lot. I think that you have to look at the contract breakdown. I think you have to look at the fact that they don't even want this guy long term. They don't feel like he's somebody that is going to be the guy. That alone tells me that they're probably going to play somebody else. And that doesn't mean that they don't value James Cook as a producer, but it just means that his contract doesn't mean anything to them. So ultimately, they're going to find somebody that can produce and they can show that they don't need him. They don't need you at that level. I don't need you producing at this level when I have somebody that's producing similar to you, that's producing the numbers that you can produce, that somebody can give me when you can give me nothing and still be productive and be successful as an NFL corporation, as an NFL team. You know what I mean? Like, as NFL offense in general, I think that you were talking about anybody can fill the role. And I think that we're going to look at the 4th round, 3rd round guys that they took, and James Cook's going to be in trouble. I think that James Cook is going to never produce at the level that he produced last year.
And even when you look at it, like his 24 season to his 23 season, like the rush attempts actually dropped by 30 rushes. His yardage dropped, his receptions dropped, but his touchdowns went up. Like, how do you walk into the GM and say, you have to pay me more money for what was clearly an outlier season where I got more touchdowns because of broken down plays and Josh Allen finding me? The Bills are not a team that are going to go up and pay him when they have Josh Allen on the books. They have their Super Bowl window. They are going to go, and like you just said, find a running back that is way cheaper, that isn't going to bring them any drama, and is probably going to give them better numbers on the ground and be able to change the look of that offense a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Chef is in the chat right now. He's talking about who's going to be the guy that's going to push Cook off of the offense. He's going to talk about Davis. I think that Davis is probably going to be more of a productive guy in that offense. I think that we're looking at Davis as being somebody that might be the RB2 in this offense that looks at more of a, I don't know. I mean, we're going to be looking at a split backfield. I think that Cook still produces. I don't think that Cook is going to be absolutely like out of the offense. But you're talking about already in the crap wide receivers in the first round. They locked in one rookie deal. Yeah, they're in a position where they don't have money to give out. They don't have the money to dish out to any rookies. They don't have the money to dish out to anybody that is in the offense right now. It's unfortunate. They set this situation up, and it is what it is. But ultimately, they're going to prove as an offense and ultimately as a front office that they can do this without money, that their job is dependent on the fact that they are, understanding and they know what they're doing and they think that they know what they're doing. Whether they do or not, it doesn't matter, but they have to prove that they know what they're doing. And that means giving the offense, giving the production to guys that are already on the offense, to guys that are already on the team. And I think that if you're going to not give money to Cook, you're going to give the production to Davis, and you're going to say, this is how we are going to play the game. This is how we're going to be successful. And you have to show me that you deserve the money. Because if you can't show me you deserve the money, which I think that I would already think that they did it, but I think that it is what it is. And you are really talking about an organization that has been playing in the middle ground, that doesn't have a lot of money, that is trying to show that they produce with guys with minimal money. Ultimately.
Yeah, that's right. Whether it's draft picks that need to hit or the free agent signings they have, maybe I'm drawing a blank on who the OC is. Is it still Brady?
Yeah, it's Brady.
I think, yeah. So I think, maybe Joe Brady needs to change up how they deploy some things. They might have to get Kincaid cooking and running up the seams a little bit more. Something you have to get something going, and you're right. Get more bang for your buck on some of those offensive weapons.
I think we're gonna go wild right now. Do you want to go an extra half an hour? Do you want to just make this pod an hour and a half? You want to go 2 hours? I don't even care right now.
Give me I'll give you 10 minutes. I got my son upstairs.
Man, 10 minutes is not long. Either way.
Let's do it. Let's roll.
Either way, we're going to go short promo. So we're talking about Dynasty Dominator right now. So Podfather is going to pop in. He's going to talk about you Dynasty Dominator. And then we're going to go back. I want to go 3 hours. Jamie wants to go 3 hours. I'll go solo for a little while. I don't give a fuck. We'll get Dane out of here. I'll go solo. I will. Yeah. I don't give a fuck. But all right. Let's go to Dynasty Dominator, and then we'll come right back.
Hey, what if I told you there was a Dynasty app where you could get player lifetime values, evaluate trades, including draft picks out to 2028, compare the advanced metrics of two players, look up the sentiment, buy, sell, hold on players? Well, there is a mobile app that has all of that and more called the Dynasty Dominator, and it's $5 in the App Store on Google Play. This is my gift to you, the most affordable Dynasty League domination app available today. And if you already have it, the 2025 class is ready to download. Let's go.
Let's go. Jump in there. Use promo code DGENS. So if you use promo code DGENS over in Dynasty Dominator app, if you go into PlayerProfiler.com, you can get $25 off. So if you go in there and you get $25 off, you can jump in there, use the Dynasty Dominator app. You can also get another $5 off. So it's almost a free app at that point, and which is amazing. That's a good resource. You go in there, you have fun, you can compare guys, you can compare players, you can just do whatever. You can look at videos of the Podfather with glasses on, which is a whole fucking different world for me. I love you, dude. Matt, brother, miss you. Either way, Chef is right. I don't give a fuck right now. We're going to go to whenever. We're going to hijack the stream. We're going to have fun with it. So we talked about quarterback. We talked about wide receiver. We are talking about running back already. Is there anybody that you want to talk about for running back? That we only talked about Saquon. We need to open that up a little bit. Let's talk about somebody that you are absolutely selling right now.
We had Saquon, we had James Cook, and now I'm adding DeAndre Swift to that list.
Oh, baby. That's fine with me. Honestly, I think that Swift is the biggest sell in Dynasty all the time. No matter what year it is, no matter what's going on, I think that you can always sell DeAndre Swift.
You know what? He gives you 2 or 3 games in a season where you get your hopes up and you know that you're going to be fucking devastated, but it sucks you back in. Always. I've fallen for that in years past. And last year I said, I'm going to have discipline. I'm going to sell him. And I went and traded him I traded DeAndre Swift and a 26-2 for Ladd McConkey in that hot streak, kind of before, people were thinking that Ladd was the real deal.
You traded Swift and what? And
Swift in a second and got Ladd in October of last year.
I'm sorry. What the fuck?
Yes.
That's an insane trade.
Yep.
What?
That was one.
Who agreed to that? Even last October, who agreed to that? That's like the 107.
Yeah, that was like late one, but just got lucky. That's those couple of games where
that's crazy.
Like I think Swift finished as an RB2, and
I don't know. I mean, I don't think Swift ever held that value. I think that you just took advantage of that person, and that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Everybody gets a deal like that once in a while. Yeah, it was his stretch of RB3, RB2, RB6, RB11.
Yeah,
and I just said, Swift, pack your shit.
That is honestly what we are talking about when we're talking about sell windows. I think that I am already in a position as a whole where I only play in leagues where I tell people this is, Dynasty Degens League. We are in a Degens League. This is the brand league. We are going to have fun with it. But my name and sleeper is Dynasty Degens, and nobody trades with me because they're like, fuck this guy. He's making content for any trade that he makes. Like I have to change my name to like fucking Joe or something. Like I gotta change it to something silly because it is the brand representing trades, and it's like nobody sends me trades because they're like, I don't want to be on a podcast. Nobody wants to be content. I get it. Like nobody's gonna be like, I want to send a trade and I want it talked about for the next fucking 5 months or something. Like nobody wants that. So, Doug, I still envy you. Like you are still in it. I gotta shift I gotta be a shapeshifter.
You gotta go on Grok and get a new username, and you gotta try it that way.
I gotta do it. You want to get out of here, brother? I know you got your kid upstairs, so get out of here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep rolling. I'm gonna just like roll it out.
Let her ride. I got a kid that I know it's summer break, but they have been demons staying up too late, and I can't handle it. I got called out last night. I need some sleep too.
I love you, brother.
Thank you for being in the chat. Love you too, brother. Have a good night.
Peace. What's up? Let me adjust my camera so you guys aren't getting. I don't want you to get wall right now. All right, baby. We are in the Degens. I'm doing a solo pod. I don't love this breakdown though. I don't like the fact that this Degens is right in front of my face. We got to figure out a way, and we're gonna do it. Hold on. Hold up. Let's do that. That's beautiful. I love that. All right. Let's do it. We've been talking about running backs. We've been talking about guys that are big time sells, and that doesn't mean anything. And you guys, I want you guys in the chat. Tell me who you guys have been selling in Dynasty. And who do you want to move off of? Like, is there a Bucky Irving seller? Is there somebody that wants to move off of guys like A-Chain? Does A-Chain make you guys want to sell just because of the volatility of Miami? Like, Miami scares me. And Miami scares me in general when it comes to the overall expectation of the offense, because like there's so much reliant on the health of the quarterback. And that doesn't mean that I think the offense is going to fold in general, but ultimately I don't think I want to take A-Chain that early. I don't think I want to scoop him up in that range and just say, okay, this is my RB1. This is the guy. You know, we're talking about Swift right now. We just talked about Swift. We talked about Dane selling Swift in a second for Lad McConkey. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. You got to go. You got to take care of your kids. Move it out of the chat. Get out of here. I kicked him off the pod for that trade. I said, get the fuck out of here, brother. Like, I think Swift is a major sell. I think that we are talking about an offense that is so hard to predict, first of all, but second of all, there has never been Swift as a reliant running back in an offense. And even when he has been, if he sees volume, he's never going to be healthy throughout a season. And it's hard for me to be like, oh, buy Swift because he's going to be the only guy in the offense. When he's the only guy in the offense, he's never been consistent throughout the year. He's been healthy. He's been in a situation. I think that we're talking about Ben Johnson as a person that didn't like Swift. First of all, he didn't like the fact that he was on the team. He didn't really enjoy him on the team. He moved him off of his team because he said he's never healthy. He's never productive. He's never somebody I can rely on because he's always banged up. There's no way that Swift is going to be the guy in this offense. So if you have Swift in your dynasty teams, of course he's a big time sell. He's a big time sell. And we're talking about Chef. You guys have been dogs in the chat. You've been guys that have been in the chat all the time, and you have been listening to every pod. So anytime you guys make a comment or anything that you want to talk about, I want to talk about it, especially when I'm solo and I'm on the pod and I don't give a fuck. Right? I wasn't supposed to roll this pod out this long, but I don't care. I want you guys in the pod. You're here, you're listening. I want to talk about what you want to talk about. All right. McLaurin in general, I've been a Terry fan his entire career. I love Terry. I love what he's been doing. He's in contract negotiations right now. He is in a situation where he is going to possibly get an extension or possibly play out his final year in a situation where we're talking about somebody that is the guy for Jaden Daniels, is somebody that is kind of the safety blanket for a second-year quarterback. So if McLaurin is not comfortable and in a comfortable situation, I think that it affects their franchise quarterback. And I think they have to lock McLaurin in. They have to lock him into a 2-year, 3-year contract, whatever it may be. But at his age, I don't feel comfortable. I don't know. They might have to eat some money. They might have to say, we're gonna suck in some money right now, and we're gonna talk about eating it up. And I think they're gonna have to eat it up with Terry. I think that we're gonna be looking at a 3-year contract with Terry, and he's going to, be productive for a year, 2 years. But I think the second that Terry signs a 3-year contract, you have to move off of him. You have to say, all right, Terry's on the block. Let's see what I can get for him. He's going to be a monster this year, and he's going to probably fade off year in, year out. And it's going to be like a situation where they're going to draft into this scenario. They're going to try to get in. He's going to have a back heavy offensive contract. Dude, sell McLaurin all day right now. Not right now, but when he signs, sell McLaurin. Definitely. Slick Daddy. What's up, Slick Daddy? Hell yeah, dude. I love the fucking SpongeBob meme. I love all that stuff. Are the Bears going to win 10 games? Yeah, the Bears are going to win 10 games. I think that the Bears are going to win exactly 10 games. I think that that is like the exact number that we're talking about, baby. I think that's exactly where we look at the success rate. But I don't think that's enough to say that we're looking at a successful season. I think that the way they built that team, the way they built that offense, you want 12 games. And they do have a tough schedule. It's not a good schedule, but I think that we're looking at an offense that probably should be winning upwards of 12 games. And I think 10 games people might have questions about Caleb still. I think Caleb has to come out and be an incredible guy. He has to be way more successful. And it's unfortunate because in this position, he is the guy, he's the wonder boy, and we're looking at somebody that is in a microscope. But ultimately, 10 games for the Bears still is not good. And that's unfortunate because I think that's successful in my mind. And I think that the offensive line, the way that they put it together, I think that they put themselves in a position to win 10 games, but I think they have to win more. And that sucks for Caleb because I think that he can make incredible progressions. And I think that, like you want to talk about wins not being a QB stat all day. Dude, media doesn't give a fuck. Media is going to say, if you don't win 10 games, if you don't win 12 games, you're not a successful quarterback in the NFL. And that's what it is. I think they can. I think they can win. They can win 10 games and they can get in the playoffs. They can be a wild card. I think they can. And you have to look at, I don't know, actually. I'm looking at the NFC right now. No, I think they can win with 10 games. I think they can still get in the wild card. We got Jaden Blue as the best running back in this year's draft. That is fucking, brother. Oh, brother. Oh, brother. I fucking love this, though. Uncle Ted, you were fucking killing it. I don't care what people say about you, dude. I love Uncle Ted. I think that's a good dude. We got lifelong Bears saying I don't trust any offensive line. I mean, I agree with you. I do. I agree with that statement. But I believe in the Bears this year. I don't know. I do to an extent. I believe in the Bears to be a wild card team. And that doesn't mean that they're going to find success in the NFL. It doesn't mean they're going to will themselves to the wild card. And that's the ceiling, I think, at this point. But I think that, that offense is built for extreme success. The rest of the team is not. So it's tough to predict at this point. All right, we're talking about fading guys. We're talking about guys that are going to completely fade out. I had my boy on for majority of the time, but I'm going to talk about tight end at this point, and we're going to be talking about, we got a couple of tight end questions. If you guys have tight end questions, drop them in the chat. We're going to be talking about tight ends right now. I'm talking about it solo. We're going to have fun with it a little bit. I'm going to talk about the chat, interact a little bit. But we're going to be talking about guys that are fading out of value, talking about guys that are going to not necessarily net you the value that you're drafting them at. And there's so many guys at the tight end position that we can put together and we can say, all right, they're going to fall out. We're completely out on these guys and we're not going to draft them at all. And like I said, it doesn't mean they're not going to produce. I had a pod at 1:00 where I said, I'm going to buy these guys. Check it out though. I'm going to put a guy that I said I'm buying right here at the front of the list, and that's Evan Ingram. If you are in on Evan Ingram, if you're going to tell me that Evan Ingram is going to smash this year, I think that he's a massive sell. I think that you have to sell this guy wherever you have him if you're not going to produce a championship season in your dynasty league. And that doesn't mean that I don't think he's going to smash this year. That doesn't mean that I don't love this guy this year, but that means that I think that he's never going to sniff the value. And you have to move these guys way before the fucking fallout. And that's okay. You got to do it. And it's okay, man. Like, just fucking do it. And if he eats this year, he eats this year. But ultimately, you're gonna be telling these dudes to sniff your panties when he sucks in 2 years, and that's okay. You gotta wait. It's a long game. It's the ultimate long game. You're seriously talking to that married woman that you work with, and you're talking to her, and you're saying, "Nice blouse, cool. Love the earrings today." Next day, nice. You change your perfume? Oh my God. Yeah. My God, did you change the backdrop? And it sounds kind of creepy, but at the same time, you're just planting little seeds. You're making little moves. You're doing this, you're doing that. Brother, she's the first person you get that text. It happens. Trust me. Plant seeds. Let it grow. Don't even push it. Just let it happen. Sell Evan Ingram right now. If your team is in the trenches, if your team is struggling right now, just move him off. Sell him. Guys that I want to buy right now, random guys, absolutely random, right? Chigo Conquo out of Tennessee. Scoop him. Scoop this guy up. Say Evan Ingram pick. I don't know. What is Evan Ingram right now in tight end premium? I think that you can get Evan Ingram. I'd move Evan Ingram in a third. I think that you can actually add to Evan Ingram for guys. You can move Evan Ingram plus for tiers of guys. You can move Evan Ingram for. Would you guys want Evan Ingram or Mark Ingram? Oh, baby. Actually, wait, you could actually get another tight end. If you're talking about the value of Evan Ingram right now, you could probably get Mark Ingram plus, right? I think that that's the well of Dynasty right now. You can get Mark Ingram plus. You can get. Let me look at the value right now. So I'm looking at the chart. I think that you can get Chig plus. You can look at. Hold on. Let's get the full rankings up right now. I love solo pods. We're just going to have fun with it. Mm. All right. So if we're talking Evan Ingram, right? Would you guys want Evan Ingram and a second or Laporta? And hit me with that question, because I think I'm taking Laporta hands down all day. If you want to move Evan Ingram and a third, and you can get Kittle, still taking Kittle right there. So if you have Evan Ingram right now, you can move him for tight end 4 or tight end 5. And that is in the realm of dynasty. I think that you're talking about Kittle being overall tight end 1 this year, and then you're talking about Laporta probably being tight end 5-ish, 4 or 5. Like, I think that they're in that realm of being top 5, but I think that Kittle's a sneaky overall tight end 1 that you might want to target at this point. But if you're going to be buying, I think that we are talking about Chigo Conquo. We're talking about guys that finished off the year very strong in the realm of being a borderline tight end 1. And Tucker Kraft is in that realm. And we're talking about if you're going to put anybody in that spot, man, you gotta go for the oft injured random guys like the Mike Gesicki's and the Kate Ottens, and the situations that might play out where T. Higgins is always oft injured, and that offense is always up in the air when it comes to production, when it comes to the fact that T. Higgins is injured, when it comes to the fact that we're talking about overall, like if you're looking at the team that might not have Godwin fully in, like okay, so if we're looking at Emeka Ibuka, probably not Godwin. We're talking about Mike Evans, and then the tight end of Odd available. Brother, all day. When we're talking about Otten being the tight end 3 overall last season when it comes to the end of season production, and then this whole offense is like up in the air and not healthy and not in a situation where they're going to be fully available, and it's tough. But like, we're talking about a rookie possibly being the wide receiver 1 of this offense and not being fully healthy. Bro, I'm all the way in on a tight end that I can sell super early in this draft. Man, rambling. Chat, you got anything for me right now? Oh, baby. Ingram absolutely could finish in the top 10. And I think I talked about that earlier. I think that these guys are people that you want to move off for guys that can match in your production, but also get a plus on top. I think that Ingram is a sell because he is going to be one of the first or second options on this team. I think that he's the 1A, 1B after sign. And like, that doesn't mean that he's not a sell, because I think that he's going to fall off in production eventually while I see these guys like massively improve. And produce at a high level, especially when it comes to like a Chig. Like I think that Chig is set up with a Cam Ward almost as well when it comes to Ingram, where we're talking about somebody that is a younger version of a super athletic tight end. We got all Ingram's tight ends. Man, would I rather have Kelsey or Ingram this year? It's definitely Ingram. I think that I have to assume, even with the Rashee Rice news and everything that's kind of breaking a little bit, that Ingram's still going to be the second option on this team, where I don't know. I mean, Kelsey still labels as possibly the second option on this team, but I think that you can't bet on Rashee Rice missing the whole year. You can't mess on it's just there's so many up in the air questions, but like Rashee Rice is going to miss total of 5 games. Whereas we see Ingram being the second option on the team all year. So it's not even a question for me. All right. I appreciate you guys. I want an extra half an hour talking nonsense, rambling, mumbling at this point. But I appreciate you guys. Definitely Chef. I appreciate you, Jamie. I appreciate all you guys in the chat, Slick Daddy, Jimmy, everybody that has been contributing, has been talking to me a little bit. You guys are OGs. I appreciate it. We got Jalen Royals in the season. Oh, man, I talked about Jalen Royals a little bit. Honestly, it's not even out of the realm of possibility at this point. You know, I think that's a fun thing. I don't think, man, I talked in detail about the suspension, about anything that can happen. I don't see more of a 4-game suspension at this point. And I don't give a shit if, you know, you guys quote tweet me or anything at this point, but I think that I don't think he took a guilty on this charge. I think he just took a plea deal. I think he signed a green sheet. And I think that he's going to look at an unplead deal where he is looking at a 2-game suspension and he comes back where nothing happened, and it's tough, but who the fuck am I, right? I don't think he signed this deal thinking he was going to get suspended by the NFL, because I think he didn't take a guilty. He said, "Oh, I'm not taking a guilty," and that's what it is. But either way, I'm drunk on wine right now. I love you guys. We're just going to roll. I got to get out of here. I'll see you guys in 2 days. So we're talking Dynasty. I don't have the Devi show on next week, so I'm doing Devi show. We're gonna just roll with it. I appreciate all you guys. I appreciate you, Jamie. Appreciate you, Chef. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Appreciate all the stuff. But I'll see you guys in a couple days. So peace. Have a good night.